The last soldier of Napoleon's army, the legend of Michel Ney opening, the ghost in the snow, December 14th, 1812, at a small French outpost on the banks of the Neymon River. Exhausted soldiers stood guard in the freezing wind. The retreat from Russia had turned into a nightmare. Most of Napoleon's once invincible army was gone. Then suddenly, a figure appeared through the snowstorm. His uniform was torn. His face was blackened with gunpowder. His beard was frozen with ice. In his hand, he still carried a musket. The guards stared at the stranger in disbelief. "Who are you?" they asked. The man slowly raised his head and answered in a hoarse voice, "I am the rearguard of the Grande Armée. I am Michel Ney." The soldiers were stunned, because according to every report, Marshal Ney should have been dead weeks ago. When the retreat became hell 1 month earlier, in November 1812, Moscow burned behind the French army. Napoleon's once mighty Grande Armée was no longer an army. It was a column of starving, freezing men trying to survive. Temperatures dropped below -30 degrees Celsius. Soldiers collapsed in the snow from exhaustion. Behind them, Russian Cossack cavalry hunted the retreating army like wolves. Napoleon knew the truth. If the rear of the army collapsed, the entire force would be destroyed. He needed someone strong enough to hold the line. Chose Marshal Michel Ney, a mission that meant almost certain death commanding. The rearguard was the most dangerous position in the entire army. It meant one thing: you would always be the last man on the battlefield. Every Russian attack would fall on you. Every retreat depended on your sacrifice. Most generals would have tried to escape, but Ney did something unexpected. He dismounted from his horse, picked up a musket, and walked beside his soldiers through the frozen wasteland. Many survivors later remembered the same image: a Marshal of France, marching through mud and snow like an ordinary infantryman. His red hair covered in frost, his boots sinking deep into the frozen ground, but he never stopped moving. The trap at Krasny in mid-November, disaster struck near the town of Krasny. Ney's corps had been reduced to only 6,000 men. Suddenly they found themselves surrounded by 80,000 Russian troops under General Miloradovich. There was no escape. The Russians sent a message to Ney. If he surrendered, his life would be spared. Ney's answer became legendary. A Marshal of France never surrenders. But courage alone could not break through an army of 80,000. So Ney did something even more dangerous. He gambled everything. That night, Michel Ney led his remaining soldiers into the dark, trackless forests. He had no roads, no maps, just a small compass to point the way. After hours of marching through the freezing wilderness, exhausted and starving, they reached the banks of the Dnieper River, but a new nightmare was waiting for them. The river was frozen, but not solid. The ice was thin and cracking under its own weight. Turning back meant certain death at the hands of the pursuing Russian army. Staying where they were meant freezing to death. The choice was between two different kinds of death. So Ney made a decision. He stepped onto the ice first. The frozen river groaned and protested beneath their feet. Every step was a gamble. Men fell through the cracking ice, disappearing into the black, freezing water below. Many never came back up. Their cries were swallowed by the vast, silent cold. But the survivors, inspired by their commander's fearless advance, kept following him. And somehow, against all odds, a small group of them made it across the river. A few days later, what was left of the main French army spotted a group of ragged, ghost-like soldiers approaching through the snow. They looked like just another broken, defeated unit, one of many staggering back from the disaster. Then their commander stepped forward and a wave of disbelief went through the camp. It was Michel Ney. Napoleon himself was stunned. He thought Ney and his entire corps were lost forever. Seeing the marshal alive, the emperor reportedly exclaimed, "I would rather lose 300 million francs than lose this man." From that moment on, Ney carried a title that history would never forget: Le Brave des Braves, the bravest of the brave. His legend didn't end there. The last units of Napoleon's once mighty Grande Armée crossed the Niemen River, finally leaving Russian territory. But even as they reached safety, the sound of gunfire could still be heard echoing from behind them. It was Michel Ney, still fighting. With a small rearguard, he was personally holding back the Russian advance. He fired the final shots of the campaign to protect his comrades' retreat. Then, his duty done, he threw his musket into the icy river and crossed the border, alone. A Marshal of France and the very last soldier of Napoleon's army to leave Russia. In the end, Michel Ney could not save the Grande Armée from its catastrophic fate. The invasion of Russia remains one of the greatest disasters in military history. But he saved something just as important, its honor. Even in the face of total collapse and unimaginable suffering, Ney proved that courage, leadership, and loyalty could survive when everything else had been destroyed. His actions became a beacon of resilience in the darkest of times, and that is why, more than 200 years later, his name is still remembered as one of the bravest soldiers to have ever lived. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe for more.